Leave the unpacking to the housekeeper. We are going out for lunch to celebrate the move, so make sure it's all done by the time we get back. My luggage needs to be handled with particular care. Living in a house with a housekeeper and 3 meals a day, including naps, is truly wonderful. The two of them left laughing happily, leaving me frozen in surprise. To them, it seems I was just a mere housekeeper after all. I have endured until now, but I have reached my limit. With me staying silent, their attitude would likely worsen even more from now on. I can't endure a life of being looked down upon and ridiculed forever. If we start living together, it's clear that they will use me even more than before. Now is the time to gather my courage to escape this life. Fortunately, I have an ace up my sleeve that can put Tyler in a tight spot. I felt that now was the only time to take my revenge on them. I'm sorry, there seems to have been a slight mistake. Actually, I decided to use the ace that I had kept secret for a long time. My name is Abby. I live with my husband, Tyler. Both of us are working. I am employed at a major advertising agency, and Tyler works in sales at a small construction company. We have been married for 5 years, and from the early days of our marriage, Tyler was always very considerate and kind to me. When I return home from work, he always greets me with warm words, and every weekend we make sure to go out and eat together, cherishing our time as a couple. However, as the years passed since our marriage, Tyler's behavior began to change gradually. Tyler stopped helping with household chores altogether, and he started to act colder towards me. "Hey, is dinner ready yet? Hurry up. You're really unreliable, you retard." Exhausted from work, Tyler would immediately ask if dinner was ready as soon as he saw me. Tyler had already come home, bathed, and was lying on the sofa in the living room, relaxing and playing on his smartphone. But as soon as I got home, I had to start preparing dinner. Although we are a working couple, no matter how tired I am from working overtime, I am in charge of all the household chores. I work too, you know. Why should I be the only one doing the housework? You could be a bit considerate since you're home first. Housework is your job. Why should I have to do that? Tyler retorts with a grumpy expression. We always end up arguing like this, but no matter how much I ask, Tyler insists that housework is a woman's job. Even though we both work, he always ignores my suggestions that we should share the chores. Tyler might be tired from his job too, but I am just the same. A couple should help each other out where possible. Let's cooperate more. Shut up. Don't talk back to me. Don't get cocky just because you work a bit. You should just listen and do as I say. Don't say that. I am not your housekeeper. If you have a problem, why don't you go somewhere else? No man would want such a cheeky woman, understand? Now go and prepare dinner quickly. I'm hungry. Tyler declared and lay back down on the sofa, starting a game on his smartphone again. Sigh. Why is it always me? Tired but determined. I began preparing dinner. A couple should support each other on a daily basis, but Tyler believes that because he is the man, I should obey as the wife. His way of thinking was very old-fashioned, something that wasn't apparent when we were dating. While many working couples share household duties, Tyler is adamant that housework is a woman's role, no matter how much we both work. No matter how busy I am with work, He insists that a woman should obey her man and perfectly manage the household chores. As I remember the kind Tyler from the past and suffer from being treated like a housekeeper, I long for our happier days to return, enduring my husband's behavior. Then, a call came that Tyler's father, my father-in-law, was taken to the hospital due to poor health. After thorough medical tests at the hospital, advanced cancer was discovered. My father-in-law was hospitalized and began focusing on treatment. After that, visiting my father-in-law in the hospital became part of my routine, squeezing it in between work. Abby, I always appreciate your help. I apologize for the inconvenience amid your busy schedule. No, this is all I can do. While providing support like bringing back laundry, I was mostly concerned about my father-in-law's health. Since marrying Tyler, I had built a good relationship with my father-in-law. The sudden cancer diagnosis was a big shock to me, but I made an effort to act cheerful in front of him. I wish I could repay you for all you're doing for me. I'm visiting because I'm worried about you, father-in-law, so please don't worry about it. My father-in-law always showed gratitude and respect. However, on the other hand, my mother-in-law seemed unhappy with the situation and avoided visiting the hospital because she was busy. Bored at home alone, she frequently imposed herself on me. I just happened to be nearby and stopped by. I'm hungry, so give me something to eat. On a day that was supposed to be a peaceful holiday, my mother-in-law visited without notice. Mother, could you please visit your husband in the hospital even just for a little bit? He seems very down lately. Huh? Ordering me around when you're just a daughter-in-law? You've become quite presumptuous. That's not what I meant. But father-in-law's condition seems to be worsening by the day. Anything could happen suddenly. Despite treatment, my father-in-law's condition had not improved much. While my mother-in-law and Tyler hardly visited his room, father-in-law's condition could deteriorate at any moment. I'm busy too. I'll go when I can. Really, this makes me so angry. My mother-in-law was furious at my words, anger welling up within her. Though she said she would go, she likely would not visit the hospital. My mother-in-law is very lazy and often leaves troublesome matters to others. It's normal to worry when you find out that your longtime spouse is sick, but even while father-in-law was receiving treatment at the hospital, my mother-in-law did not stop her self-centered behavior. She gives strict instructions to others and uses me as a runner, so honestly, I really struggle with her. But as Tyler's mother, I can't just ignore her, and I end up having to comply with her demands. My mother-in-law loves shopping, is extravagant in spending, and has an appearance too flashy for her age. Also, she is very bad at tidying up, and each time I visit the in-laws' home, I see things scattered everywhere. This situation has not changed since the past, and although father-in-law tried to tidy up with her, her disdain for housework remained unimproved, and he eventually had to give up. Perhaps Tyler's insistence that housework is women's work comes from growing up seeing his mother behave like this. Since father-in-law was hospitalized, I have been treated like a housekeeper, not only by my husband but also by my frequently visiting mother-in-law. In addition to my daily work and housework, I need to meet my mother-in-law's unreasonable demands, and I have gradually become exhausted. Seeing my state, Tyler did not offer any help. I'm tired from work, he excuses, trying to escape the hassle. But I am also working. Why must I bear all the burdens alone? As my anger built up, my mother-in-law added insult to injury by saying, "Respect our son more. It's because you neglect housework for your job that Tyler ends up having to take it on. Be aware of your position without slacking off." My mother-in-law is self-centered, adores her only son excessively, and has given me unnecessary advice to prioritize my husband. Just like Mother said, "Let's take this opportunity to properly discipline you. I'm always troubled by your constant objections." Instead of defending me when I was being scolded, Tyler further encouraged my mother-in-law with his remarks. Afterwards, my mother-in-law, seemingly pleased, increased her nagging and sarcasm, pushing me to a mental breaking point. And then, an event that added more difficulty to such harsh days occurred. I'm going on a trip overseas for a while. There's a fashion show of a brand I like. I'll be away for some time. One day, troubled by my mother-in-law's daily visits, she suddenly announced her trip, and a moment of quiet followed. She said she would return a week later, so I thought I could calm my mind during that time. However, one night, when returning from work, I witnessed an unbelievable sight of Tyler. Tyler was sprawled carelessly on the living room sofa, snoring loudly. Approaching, I could smell the strong scent of alcohol around him. Apparently, he had been drinking something on his way home from work. Enjoying such an easy life all by himself? I wonder. While feeling at the limit of my patience, I started cleaning up the suits and bags Tyler had scattered around the living room. Suddenly, I noticed something unusual. "What is this?" As I picked up a crumpled shirt to wash it, a strong scent of perfume wafted up. It was definitely women's perfume, and obviously not the kind I use. The sweet, heavy scent made me feel sick. Not only did the shirt smell, but it also had lipstick marks on it, confirming Tyler had been with another woman. Even if I confronted Tyler, he, with his condescending attitude, would not readily admit to his infidelity. Instead, he would likely get angry and say, "A wife suspecting her husband is unforgivable." My love for him, who took my dedication to the family for granted, had already faded, but today's event made it definitive. I've worked hard for the family all this time. I can't take it anymore. Tears overflowing, I left the living room to wipe them away in the bathroom. The face that reflected back at me from the mirror seemed much older compared to before. Perhaps due to stress, I had lost 10 pounds. The dark circles under my eyes and the hair mixed with white strands made me look much older than my actual age. If I stay silent, I'll just continue to be used as a convenient housekeeper. Dealing with Tyler and his strict mother is very difficult, but I can't endure a life of being used without saying anything. At that moment, I made up my mind. I decided to keep a vow of revenge against Tyler and his mother in my heart. Even though the days of being used by Tyler and his mother continued as before, I decided to wait for the perfect opportunity to thoroughly crush them. During this time, my father-in-law, who had been fighting a long illness, finally passed away. I was prepared for his death since the cancer had metastasized throughout his body, and the doctors had told us there was no hope for recovery, but the grief was still profound. However, neither my mother-in-law nor Tyler understood the gravity of the situation and pushed all the responsibility onto me, leaving me no time to grieve. After arranging everything from my father-in-law's funeral to the wake and the burial, my mother-in-law, who had suddenly visited our house as usual, said something astonishing. "Now that my husband has passed away, I'll be living here from today. Please take care of me." Next to her, a large suitcase made it clear that her words were no joke. Faced with her sudden declaration of moving in, I protested. "You can't just decide this all of a sudden. I wasn't informed." "It was my decision." "Do you have a problem with that?" Tyler responded defiantly, alongside his mother. "Why is he so self-centered?" My head spun with anger. "Of course I have a problem. Why wouldn't you discuss such an important matter beforehand?" I yelled. Tyler completely ignored my opinion and had unilaterally decided to live with his mother. I couldn't stay silent about such a decision. "Why should I need your approval?" "It's already decided," he said. "That's too selfish. If Mom comes, she can help with the housework you've been slacking on. That's a good thing," Tyler said, smirking, but I knew my mother-in-law would never actually help with the chores. "Oh, the movers will be here soon. Hurry up and carry in my luggage. It would be terrible if something happened," my mother-in-law said. "Leave the unpacking to the housekeeper. We are going out for lunch to celebrate the move, so make sure it's all done by the time we get back. I especially want my luggage to be handled carefully. It's really wonderful to be able to live in a home with a housekeeper, complete with 3 meals and naps." The two of them left laughing happily, leaving me frozen in surprise. To them, it seems I was just a mere housekeeper after all. I have endured until now, but I have reached my limit. With me staying silent, their attitude will likely worsen even more from now on. I can't endure a life of being looked down upon and ridiculed forever. If we start living together, it's clear that they will use me even more than before. Now is the time to gather my courage to escape this life. Fortunately, I have an ace up my sleeve that can put Tyler in a tight spot. I felt that now was the only time to take my revenge on them. "Hello, I've come to deliver your moving boxes. Are you home?" After a while, the moving truck arrived. Looking at the truck bed, it was stacked with boxes of my mother-in-law's belongings. Seeing this, I came up with a plan. "I'm sorry, there seems to have been a slight mistake. Actually, I made a special request to the driver to prepare for Tyler and his mother's unpacking to go smoothly. When they returned home, they would surely be furious." As the plan was set in motion, I smiled secretly, left alone in the house. Hours later, when the two returned home and found me relaxing in the living room, they looked furious. "Welcome home," I said. "Why are you so relaxed when you haven't even unpacked?" Tyler said. "What? The luggage?" "I've already put everything away," I replied. "Don't lie. There's no way you could have finished unpacking so much stuff so quickly," Tyler yelled. "Wait, I can't find the luggage in the house. What's going on? Where is my stuff?" my mother-in-law screamed in surprise. That's what I said. I've put away all the luggage. At your lover's house, I calmly responded. What are you talking about? Tyler exclaimed in shock. There's no need to play dumb. I hired a detective to investigate you. You're cheating, aren't you? I declared. I had secretly hired a detective to monitor Tyler, suspecting his infidelity. According to the investigation, it was clear that Tyler was unfaithful. On nights he claimed to be busy at work, and doing overtime he was actually meeting his lover. I don't understand what you're saying. Don't change the subject. Tell me where my mother's luggage is. Tyler pressed on. That's why I said, it's at your lover's house. The moving company got it wrong and delivered here, so I told them to take it to the correct address. I calmly answered. The information gathered by the detective included everything about his lover. I had all her details: the age of the woman, information about the family she lived with, and even her address. Thus, I deliberately had my mother-in-law's belongings sent to this woman's house. Why would you do something like that? Tyler faltered, his face turning pale. Just confronting you about the affair seemed too bland. Have you forgotten how little you've regarded me? Moreover, my revenge doesn't end with just the luggage. I continued. What else is there? Tyler asked nervously as I presented him with a photograph. It was a photo provided by the detective, capturing Tyler walking arm in arm with an unfamiliar woman, clear evidence of his infidelity. How about this? This is clear evidence of your affair. With this, I can demand compensation from both you and that woman, I stated firmly. Taking pictures like that is sneaky, Tyler retorted. Who's the sneaky one? Leaving everything to me while you cheat behind my back. There's no greater betrayal, I told him. That's ridiculous. What are you so upset about? You feel unattractive as a woman, so you're caught up in such delusions. The affair is completely unfounded. You're free to deny it. But what about the reaction from your workplace? What? You told my workplace? Why would you do that? The photographs capturing the affair had been obtained by the detective and sent to Tyler's workplace as well. Yes, I did. Because your workplace isn't unrelated to this matter. Did you know your lover is the boss's wife? I added a note that infidelity is rampant in your company, wondering what you've been up to with the boss's wife. If it gets out, your position is done for, I pointed out. Faced with the undeniable evidence, Tyler was at a loss for words. It's your fault. You don't understand your role as a wife. It's only natural that Tyler would have an affair. My mother-in-law shouted, defending him. If that's your logic, why don't you say the same thing at your lover's house? His boss would be quite interested to hear it. He'll probably be furious, though. As I said this, my mother-in-law fell silent and looked down. What have you done? My life is over. That's your own fault, isn't it? Messing with the boss's wife. If it gets out, you won't get off easily. After hearing that, Tyler's face rapidly turned pale. This is no joke. Return my precious luggage immediately. It contains many valuable branded items. Similarly, his mother turned red with anger upon learning that her belongings were in the hands of a stranger. She yelled at me to go and retrieve the luggage from the lover's house immediately, but I had no intention of doing so. No, thank you. If it's so important, you shouldn't rely on Slow Me but go and fetch it yourself. Why don't you say you're Tyler's mother and visit her? How could this happen? His mother fell silent. Overwhelmed by the shock, she collapsed right there. Usually so aggressive and assertive, she was this fragile when faced with criticism. Eventually, she started to cry. Just then, Tyler's phone suddenly rang. His boss's name appeared on the screen, and Tyler hesitated but answered the call. "I suppose you understand why you are receiving this call from me. This is unforgivable. You are fired immediately." The boss's voice came through. "This can't be. Sir, this is all a misunderstanding. Please listen to me," Tyler pleaded desperately. Tyler tried desperately to justify himself to his boss, but it seemed that the termination was confirmed, and the call soon ended. Shocked by the loss of his job, Tyler momentarily lost his words, then began furiously blaming me. "I will never forgive you. We're getting a divorce. Get out of this house immediately. No, you are the ones who will leave." "What are you talking about? This is Tyler's house, isn't it?" "What are you talking about? I am the one paying for this house's mortgage." "That can't be. Are you lying? Why would you be paying the mortgage?" Unaware that the apartment was not in her son's name, his mother was astonished to learn this fact. At the beginning of our marriage, it was decided that I, who earned more, would pay the mortgage, something his mother did not know. "Unfortunately, I earn more than your son." Lately, since Tyler did not do any housework, I had been unable to concentrate on my work, yet my salary was still higher than Tyler's. "I have no intention of living in this house any longer. I plan to pay off the mortgage early and sell the house. You are welcome to buy this house if you want. Oh, but that might be difficult for you now that you're unemployed." In my words, his mother contorted her face in anger. "I've had enough. I'm going back to my own home. I don't need this place." "Oh, that's not possible. Demolition has already started there." "What? Demolition? What are you talking about?" My mother-in-law raised her voice in surprise. "After you moved into our house, I requested the demolition. It's already a vacant lot now, unfortunately," I explained. My mother-in-law began to tremble with rage. "How could you do such a thing? I'm calling the police." "Please do. But it will be you who ends up embarrassed. That property has been legally transferred from your husband's to my name," I calmly replied. "What? How could it pass me by and end up in your name?" My father-in-law, during his lifetime, had said many times that I was the only reliable family member he could depend on. I had declined his offers repeatedly, but after he passed away, the will that was found stated that he had left the house and land rights to me. It was natural his mother didn't know this fact. Unbelievable. Why would he leave his estate to his daughter-in-law? I cared for my father-in-law not to gain anything, but unlike you, who hardly ever came to look after him, why would he want to leave anything to you? This is unforgivable. What are we supposed to do now? We don't even have a home in this situation. That is something you brought upon yourselves. You're free to go wherever you like. Wait. I didn't mean what I said earlier about leaving. You can't be serious about us leaving, right? What are you talking about? I am serious. Hurry up and pack your stuff. It's convenient for me too, as I won't have to pack for your mother. Both of you can go to your boss's house to retrieve them." As I said this, Tyler and his mother slumped their shoulders in defeat. Afterwards, I pursued legal action through a lawyer and demanded compensation from Tyler and his mistress. Due to the existence of infidelity photos, the lover was divorced by her spouse. Then, I presented Tyler with divorce papers and demanded that he sign them. However, Tyler begged for forgiveness while crying, asking for another chance. "I'm truly sorry. I will change my ways from now on. Please reconsider the divorce. It's only now in this situation that I realize I can't think of anyone but you." Tyler was apologizing like mad. Despite showing such a humble attitude, it seemed he was only superficially regretful, fearing the inconvenience of being unemployed and homeless and being the one to bring up divorce. I had no intention of continuing our life together as if nothing had happened. "No, thank you. You're probably not truly remorseful, are you? From now on, live with your own mother. I don't want any more involvement with you," I firmly refused. Despite his reluctance, when I threatened to increase the compensation for the affair if he did not agree to divorce, he finally signed the divorce papers. As a result, he and his mother reluctantly moved into a small, cheap apartment. After being fired from the company, Tyler started job hunting, but without success. The main reason was that the husband of his lover, his former boss, put pressure on the entire industry, making it known that Tyler should be avoided for employment. Eventually, Tyler had to engage in temporary manual labor dispatch work to earn an income, but having no experience working outdoors before, he was criticized by his coworkers for being useless. Due to financial difficulties, his mother had to let go of her branded items, and the shock gradually advanced her symptoms of dementia. Recently, she has begun wandering at night, and I hear Tyler is under considerable stress caring for her. As for myself, after letting go of the past residence, I found a new rental apartment closer to my company. In this new environment, I decided to revitalize my life, overcome the distress of divorce, and focus on my work, which had been affected by household chores. My performance at work has improved, and the possibility of promotion is becoming a reality. Looking in the mirror, the haggard reflection of myself from the time spent with Tyler has disappeared, replaced by a new self filled with motivation. Continuing life with Tyler and his mother would have made the current situation impossible. Grateful for the opportunity given by my father-in-law, I am immersed in my work today. Several months have passed since my divorce from Tyler, and I have been recognized at work and promoted to a new position. My salary has increased, and I am enjoying a comfortable life living alone. Though I intended to keep a distance from romance for a while, I recently started dating a man introduced by a friend. Unlike my ex-husband Tyler, this new partner naturally handles daily chores, including cooking. Being unable to do household chores is embarrassing as an adult, he points out. I am truly grateful to have met someone independent, not as a comparison to Tyler. Currently, I am living together with him, and we are considering marriage in the future. Having once failed in marriage, this experience fortunately helped me find a wonderful partner. Going forward, I aim to lead a fulfilling life together with him. My wife is Charlotte. I'm divorcing you to marry her. Take that useless child and get out quickly. Mateo presented the divorce papers to me with an arrogant attitude. Charlotte, with a smug smile, snuggled up to Mateo and looked down on me disdainfully. To them, I must appear as a pitiful person. However, they do not realize how foolish they actually are. I find it profoundly sad. Do you understand what you're saying? Do you really think you can just get a divorce? My mother stated this firmly to them. I am Ava Jones, a 32-year-old housewife. I have been married to Mateo for 3 years. I live with my in-laws at their home, where our family is about to grow. I am currently pregnant, and the birth is imminent. Recently, as my belly has begun to show, conversations with neighbors about the baby make me increasingly excited to meet my child. After a long period of infertility treatments, I finally conceived my first child. There were times during treatment when my spirit nearly broke, but seeing my baby's growth during regular checkups always soothed my heart. While I have some nerves and anxiety about giving birth, the joy and anticipation far outweigh them. Incidentally, my doctor has informed me that the baby is a girl. Regardless of whether my child is a girl or a boy, I plan to enjoy whatever path they choose, and I am imagining a bright future for them. Yet Mateo's reaction was surprisingly different. A girl? Really? Yes, that's what the doctor said. No way. What? As soon as he knew it was a girl, Mateo looked very displeased. He was clearly disappointed. Mateo had wanted a child and was very happy when he learned of the pregnancy. But now he even says, I don't need a girl. The reaction from my in-laws was the same, nodding in agreement with Mateo's opinion. Why does it have to be a girl? Absolutely unbelievable. There's no point in her being born. Despite being their own child or grandchild, how can my husband and in-laws say such cruel things so casually? I felt intense anger at their words, but I desperately suppressed it, preparing myself to endure the days ahead. I began to be treated coldly by my husband and in-laws. Ava, take good care of the baby in your belly and rest. My former mother-in-law used to say this to me. However, since the gender became known, she started saying harshly, hurry up and finish the housework, and you're so slow it's irritating. Furthermore, knowing I was pregnant, they would deliberately make me carry heavy things. Neither my father-in-law nor Mateo helped with the housework at all, they just complained. Are you going to make us eat such awful food? Are you slacking off just because you're pregnant? Dad is right. They only want a boy and see a girl as nothing but a nuisance. Even so, I shouldn't have to endure such terrible treatment. For my child's sake, I have resisted this humiliating situation and protested many times, but they only mocked me more. Whether the coming child is a boy or a girl, they are precious. I continued to argue that they should stop belittling us, but it had no effect. Relying on us and can't even produce an heir, what can an incompetent wife like you say? Mateo and my in-laws dismissively said that. No matter how hard I worked or how earnestly I pleaded for them to change their attitude and help with the chores, it did not resonate with them. And I was left to wear myself out, both mentally and physically, alone. Their attitude only escalated. Children are a hassle, and they cost money. Why don't you just get an abortion? I never imagined my mother-in-law, a mother herself, would say such a thing. My father-in-law laughed uproariously in agreement with the idea, and Mateo sneered. Perhaps they lack the essential human decency. I deeply regretted becoming family with such people. After that, I minimized my interactions with them, avoiding them except during meals. I stayed in my room most of the time, and when possible, I would take long walks to pass the time. I didn't want to be with them at all. However, they would come to my room to continue hurling insults, pushing me to the brink mentally. Eventually, I reached my limit, and like when I was undergoing infertility treatments, I began to cry uncontrollably at night. Staying in this house would surely drive me insane. I was on the verge of despair, about to fall. Continuing to live here would also negatively affect the baby in my womb, and a safe delivery would be utterly impossible. I immediately contacted my mother, who lives alone. I decided to return to my parents' home earlier for the baby's birth. "Hello, Mom, I need to talk to you. Is it okay if I come home earlier than planned?" "Of course you can come back any time if you're okay with it." "Thank you, it really helps." Ava, that voice. "Something's happened, hasn't it? Don't overdo it. Come back right away." Sensing something was wrong from my demeanor, my mother warmly welcomed me back. My mother is truly amazing. I want to be able to protect my child like she does. As I thought that way, I gently put my hand on my stomach. Then I quickly packed my things, and 2 days later, I was able to return to my parents' home. Upon arriving at my parents' home, the warm and nostalgic atmosphere almost brought me to tears. The space was so different from the stifling home of my in-laws that I instinctively took a deep breath, and at dinner, I tasted my mother's cooking for the first time in a long while, which was comforting. My mother always cared for my health. In my in-laws' home, despite there being 4 people, I always felt alone, and being back here made me realize how comforting and warming it is to have someone who understands and supports me. Although I was finally having some peaceful time, my feelings of unease hadn't completely cleared. In fact, my distrust towards Mateo and his parents only grew. Since returning home, not only had Mateo not come to visit, but there had also been no contact at all. I didn't mind not hearing from my in-laws because dealing with them was painful, but what was Mateo thinking, as the father of my child? He showed no concern for my health. Perhaps to him, I was no longer of any importance. Even my mother sensed something was amiss with the lack of contact from him. "Why hasn't Mateo contacted us?" she asked one day, but I didn't know how to answer and just shook my head. And without any contact from Mateo, the time for childbirth finally came. In the delivery room, my mother held my hand the entire time and taught me breathing techniques. I wondered how much time had passed since the labor pains began, my consciousness started to blur. Ava, hang in there. You'll meet your baby soon. You're a strong woman. It'll be all right. Thanks to my mother, I managed to keep breathing even in the toughest moments. Ava, congratulations. You did great. She's a beautiful baby. With tears flowing, my mother celebrated the birth of the baby. Happiness seemed to radiate from my newborn, and I couldn't stop my tears either. Although my heart was filled with joy, a bit of sadness lingered due to Mateo's absence. When the labor pains began, I tried to contact Mateo repeatedly. I sent many messages and made several calls, but there was no response, only the impersonal electronic tone of the phone ringing endlessly. Wondering if he wasn't answering because it was my smartphone, I even tried calling from my mother's phone, but Mateo never picked up. After giving birth, Mateo never showed his face at my parents' home, and 2 months quickly passed. The first months of parenting were busy with diaper changes, feedings, and responding to night cries. When the baby cried at night, my mother would take over, saying, "I'll take care of her. You get some rest, allowing me to get some sleep." Thanks to my mother's constant support, I was able to get through the toughest times. The parenting knowledge I learned from my mother, an experienced parent herself, was invaluable, and gradually I became capable of managing on my own. During this time, I continued to send photos and videos of the child's growth to Mateo and my in-laws, but I doubted they were even looking at them. The lack of responses made me feel they were indifferent or not even viewing the updates, which was disheartening. I continued calling without ever receiving a reply, and my anxiety and doubts only grew. After enduring this for a while, I could not leave the issue unresolved any longer and finally decided to return to my in-laws' house with my child. My mother agreed to accompany me on the trip back, which was both comforting and a relief. As I held the house key in my hand in front of the in-laws' home for the first time in a long while, memories of before my return to my parents' house flooded back, and my hands trembled. When I slowly turned the doorknob, unexpectedly, I could hear children's laughter and a woman's laughter inside, and I instantly pictured who it might be. Mateo has no female relatives, and all his cousins are unmarried men. It was clear that these were not relatives. With my mind going blank in shock, I courageously opened the door. In the entrance, I saw unfamiliar small red shoes and women's-sized sneakers, none of which I recognized. My mother also looked on in astonishment. We immediately entered the house and hurried toward the source of the voices. When I reached the living room, there was an unfamiliar woman and a young boy. "Who are you?" I exclaimed in surprise, and Mateo, along with my in-laws, appeared from the back of the room. "Why are you entering like this on your own? And you even brought your mother. How rude of you!" "Just wait a minute, Mateo. Are these people acquaintances of someone?" I asked, bewildered. Without any sign of disturbance, Mateo pulled the woman close to him. There was an obvious intimate atmosphere between them. The woman, with a provocative look, stared at me and approached. "This is my girlfriend and our child. You should be able to figure that out," Mateo said smugly, as if he had won something. "What do you mean, our child?" I looked intently at the boy, who seemed about 2 years old. "So when you say my girlfriend and our child, You mean she's your mistress? Calculating back from the child's age, Matteo likely began his affair with this woman about 3 years ago. It's boring to be with someone plain like you, so I had no choice. It's all your fault, Matteo laughed arrogantly. Despite my mother being there, they continued with their harsh words mercilessly. As usual, my in-laws did nothing to stop Matteo's behavior. Had they known about this all along? No, they must have known from the beginning, and all of them mocked me together. Why must I, who has done nothing wrong, continue to be insulted like this? Sorry for stealing Matteo from you, the mistress sneered. Her name was Charlotte, and she was 26 years old. Charlotte worked as a bottle girl, and it all started when she met Matteo, who came in as a customer. Matteo often claimed he was working late, but in reality, he was meeting with Charlotte, and eventually, they began their secret rendezvous. As a result of these meetings, Charlotte became pregnant, a fact they hid for a while. However, once it was confirmed that the baby was a boy, Matteo proudly informed his parents. My son has done well. This is fantastic, exclaimed my mother-in-law in joy. An affair is not a problem. What matters is that he has produced an heir. My father-in-law stated without any sense of guilt. A young mistress who can give birth to a boy is obviously more valuable than an incompetent wife who can only give birth to girls. He shockingly declared, and I glared at him in response. By the way, that was right after we got married, wasn't it? Were you cheating on me from that time, I asked? That's right. You're 32, right? If the odds of having a boy are 50%, it's normal to think that being with a younger and incidentally prettier woman would increase the chances of having a boy. Matteo reasoned. This indicated his intention to make the woman who bore him a son his official wife. I was speechless at the ruthless and amoral things Matteo was willing to say. While I was stunned into silence, he continued, Charlotte is my wife. I'm divorcing you to marry her? Take that useless child and get out quickly. Matteo thrust the divorce papers in front of me with a haughty attitude. Charlotte snuggled up to him with a smug smile, looking down on me disdainfully. To them, I must look pitiful. However, they are unaware of how foolish they actually are. I find that profoundly sad. Do you understand what you're saying? Do you really think you can just get a divorce? My mother said firmly to them. Overwhelmed by her imposing presence, the smile disappeared from Matteo's face, and he looked at us skeptically. What do you mean by that? He asked. Oh, didn't you know? The president of the company you work for is Ava's uncle, and your current position is all thanks to Ava. Ava's uncle Matteo was visibly shocked. Indeed, the company Matteo worked for was managed by my uncle, my mother's brother. Matteo's promotions had not been due to any exceptional work on his part, but were all because of connections. If you divorce Ava, you'll also lose that position, my mother continued. Matteo had no idea. I hadn't told him deliberately so. He had a high pride, and learning that his promotions were not a result of his merit, but were facilitated by my uncle would likely infuriate him. Or, knowing the familial connection, he might take an even more arrogant stance or slack off at work. Either outcome would not have been favorable. Matteo and his parents were rendered speechless by this revelation. They were stunned to learn that the family of the daughter-in-law they had been looking down upon was actually the president of the company that supported their lifestyle. Ignoring their shocked expressions, my mother calmly continued, "By the way, you're no longer welcome at our company." "What? Why?" Matteo stuttered in confusion. "Well, you've been embezzling company funds, haven't you? That's already been discovered by the management." I was truly shocked when I learned this from my mother during my visit home. If this became public, police involvement was inevitable. "Even if you try to divorce and run away, we'll just report you to the police. What will you do now?" My mother's tone was calm, but Matteo's complexion turned pale instantly. Seemingly overwhelmed and unable to form words, Matteo gaped, shaking slightly. We waited for him to speak. If I don't divorce, can I be forgiven for the embezzlement?" Kneeling down, Matteo desperately asked my mother a question. However, my mother shook her head without changing her expression, denying his plea. "There's no way that could happen. What you did is a crime. It cannot be forgiven." After sighing deeply in disbelief, she glanced at Charlotte and continued. "You said you were going to divorce Ava and marry this woman, didn't you? As a man, it looks bad if you don't follow through on your decisions. Oh, and if you do divorce my daughter, you'll have to pay child support, property division, and repay all the embezzled money." Hearing this, Matteo collapsed to the floor as if all strength had left him. He then looked up at my mother and apologized as much as he could. "I am truly sorry. I can no longer live in society as I am. Please, please forgive me." It was pathetic. Seeing him like this, I realized that any affection I had for him had completely cooled. Perhaps my feelings for Matteo had been gradually eroded since I became pregnant. And now, at the moment his dignity was lost, my fear of him and my in-laws was also swept away. I no longer feared their words. As I looked down at him crouched on the floor, crying and sniffling in a disgraceful state, I continued after my mother's words. "From now on, you just need to make proper payments to me and the child. Adding what you owe to the company, it will be a significant amount, so even if you divorce me, you won't be able to waste money frivolously." Matteo was known for his extravagant spending, with unused expensive ties and shoes cluttering our home. He also purchased costly golf clubs under the pretense that they might be used for entertaining clients, though they never were. In response to my words, Matteo weakly nodded, while Charlotte made a displeased face, her lips pursed in dissatisfaction. Ignoring them, I turned my attention to my in-laws. I had something to say to them too. At that moment, my mother-in-law suddenly screamed, "It's all your fault. Because of you. We've ended up living like this." Matteo's mother yelled at me, her eyes bloodshot with anger, as soon as she saw me. However, what had happened was the result of their own choices, not my responsibility. This was a line I had heard before, but now it had no effect on me. However, my mother-in-law was furiously escalating her voice, and I found her behavior somewhat pitiful, swallowing the words I was about to say. Matteo then repeatedly apologized to my mother and promised to repay the embezzled money, so he was not reported to the police. However, he was fired from the company as a result of his actions. A year passed quickly, and currently, my child and I are living happily. The persistent criticism from Matteo and my in-laws had ceased, and I am mentally stable. Looking back, I can see just how abnormal life was before the divorce. Over time, memories of them gradually faded into the distance. Yet one day, unexpectedly, Matteo and his parents appeared before us, as if to make sure they were not forgotten. But they were no longer the people they once were. They looked miserable. They used to dress flamboyantly and appeared youthful, but now they wore cheap, pilled sweatsuits and jerseys. It seemed they hadn't been able to go to the hair salon. Their hair roots showed their natural color and were unkempt. It was clear they were struggling financially. According to what they said, my in-laws had squandered money recklessly despite their dire situation, and their wasteful habits hadn't changed. They had used up not only their own pensions but also Matteo's living expenses, buying luxury items on credit. Ultimately, they had to sell off their expensive possessions to keep up with payments. This situation was their own making, and I had no part in their downfall. Even after being fired, Matteo still clung to his previous industry, currently working part-time while job hunting. However, his reputation in the industry had spread negatively, and naturally, the circumstances of his departure from his previous job were well known among companies, making it difficult for him to return to his former industry or secure a full-time position. He's been forced to make ends meet through part-time jobs, but it seems all the money he earns disappears with repayments, property division, and child support. He reportedly survives by buying discounted bentos late at night at supermarkets, but even knowing this situation, I couldn't find it in myself to sympathize with them. While Matteo and his parents spoke, I could only quietly listen. During this time, I noticed Charlotte's child looking around the room, being led by my mother-in-law, and realized Charlotte was not present. As I pondered whether they had not married, Matteo, noticing my gaze, said with a defeated shrug, "Charlotte left. She abandoned me once I lost my job and money." I remembered Charlotte's ambiguous expression when I had once advised Matteo to curb his extravagant spending. She was only interested in my money. I was deceived by her. Matteo exclaimed. To my surprise, he revealed a shocking fact. He had thought the child was his with Charlotte. But after the child grew and resembled him not at all, he did a DNA test, which confirmed the child was not his. After I found out, she disappeared on her own. Matteo explained. As they spoke, holding the boy, seemingly seeking sympathy, a man appeared in the living room. He was holding a small boy who looked at me and smiled joyfully, his smile seeming to brighten everyone around him. Seeing his radiant smile filled me with affection. "Ava, who is this man?" Matteo's voice trembled with surprise. His reaction mirrored my own when Charlotte had first appeared at my in-laws' home. "He's grown, hasn't he? This is my son." The doctor didn't notice in the photos since his lower half was hidden, but actually the child born a year ago was a boy. Upon realizing that Matteo and my child was a boy, their attitudes suddenly changed. is that? Does that mean my child is a boy? Matteo asked. Yes, that's right, I replied. Matteo, well done. Now we can start over. What are you talking about? Oh, you should have told us sooner. That's great. My in-laws suddenly changed their demeanor and said this with smiles. Their way of thinking was astonishingly baffling to me. It seemed utterly irrational. Do they really believe that the world revolves only around their desires? Sorry for the late introduction, but this man is my husband. So there's no way I would start over with you, I explained. Your husband? What? Didn't you hear? This man is my new husband, I affirmed. When I introduced my husband to Matteo, he became furiously red-faced and hurled insults. That's a joke. Were you cheating on me? Don't mess with me. I haven't cheated. I met him after we separated. Don't lump me together with you, you who had an affair and a secret child behind my back. I calmly stated the facts. Enraged, Matteo staggered towards our son, attempting to forcefully take him from my husband. Stop it. What are you doing? This child's real father is me. Let go of him, you bastard. At this, our son began to cry out of fear, clinging to my husband and rejecting Matteo. Seeing this, Matteo came to his senses and lowered his hands. I glared at him sharply and said coldly, "Given that you've tried to harm the child, we can never meet again. You're truly despicable." But I didn't intend to harm him. The very fact that you came here uninvited is frightening. If you come near our family again, I will call the police. I warned them. Perhaps frightened by my words, Matteo and his parents hurriedly left our home. At that moment, I thought we would never have to deal with them again, but I was naive. Unable to give up on my son, they continued to contact us several times through messages and calls. I then hinted at getting a restraining order and firmly warned them. This is your last warning. I will not hesitate to call the police if it continues, which finally stopped their attempts to reach out. I was concerned about Charlotte's child, but it seemed that Matteo and his parents had largely neglected their duties, and following a neighbor's report to Child Services, the police got involved. Eventually, Charlotte's parents took custody of the child and were raising him with love, which relieved me when I heard about it from the police. Meanwhile, Matteo and his parents had garnered a bad reputation in the neighborhood and could no longer work there, prompting them to move far away. This finally freed me completely from my in-laws. I am currently expecting a second child with my current husband, and soon our family will grow. A lively and bright life awaits us. Imagining a radiant and happy future, my mother, my family, and I are preparing to welcome this new life. Right now, I am enveloped in as much happiness as possible, and I am deeply grateful to my family, who has always supported me. I have vowed to be a kind and strong woman like my mother, to protect what is important,